Welcome everybody, my name is Nick, and today we're going to go over the different card types in the Eldricore TCG. So the first card type we have here is called a follower. Now these are similar to units or creatures from other card games, so essentially you'll play these out during your main phase. The cost for the card is up in the top left. You can see this card costs 2. The attack for the card is in the bottom left, so when this card attacks it does deal 2 damage. And finally the HP or the life for the card is in the bottom right, so it also has 2 HP. So when it takes 2 damage or more, it would die. Now, you can only play these cards during your main phase when there's nothing else resolving. So these are considered slow speed. Now, you can attack with these immediately. So the turn you play this down, you could exhaust it to attack either your opponent's Eldricore or one of their exhausted followers. Now, keep in mind, in this game, you do get multiple attack phases. So essentially the way it works is you're in your main phase, you can play stuff down. When you declare an attack, then you go into a mini attack phase, you do the attack phase, and then after the attack you go back into your main phase to where you could then play another follower and attack again. So the next type of card we're going to go over is an instant spell. So here in the middle of the card you can see this is a night spell and it is instant. So this card says prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to target follower you control or your Eldricore this turn. So the way this card works is it is instant speed. So you can cast this on either your turn or your opponent's turn whenever you have priority. So let's say that this was your opponent's follower, and let's say they exhausted it to attack your Eldricore. So in response to that attack, you could pay 1, which you can see as a cost up here in the top left, and then you could use this, and that would block the next 3 damage that went to your Eldricore this turn. So keep in mind this does say this turn. So here it would block 2 damage, but that means there would be 1 more damage. So if your opponent attacked again this turn, you would block 1 of the damage of the next attack as well. The other thing is players do have 2 sets of priority during attacks. So when someone declares an attack, the players both get priority starting with the defending player first. And that's when you could choose to use this if you wanted to. Now, after that, blockers are declared. So if you had a follower out and you wanted to declare them as a blocker, you would exhaust them and declare the blocker. After that is done, both players do get priority 1 more time. So that way, if you have any instant spells or abilities that you want to use after blockers are declared, you do have 1 more chance. So technically, you have 2 chances to use instant spells whenever there's an attack. Additionally, if your opponent activates an ability or activates a spell card of their own, you do get a chance to respond to that ability or that spell, so you could also use instant spells at that point. So the next kind of card we're going to go over is a slow speed spell. So this spell is very similar to a follower in that it can only be used during your main phase when there's nothing else resolving. Now, both of these spells, whenever they are gone, or after you do use them, they do go to the graveyard. So, for example, if I were to use block to defend damage, it goes to the graveyard afterwards. Same thing with charge. If I use charge, it will go to the graveyard afterwards as well. So the next type of card that we're going to go over here is weapons. So here you can see this is the Knight's Longsword. It is a knight weapon. Now it says on play, attach this card to a follower. That follower gets +3/0 while this card is attached. So that means whenever you play this card, you would attach it to a follower. The easiest way to do this is usually to just kind of put it underneath a follower, something like this, so that way you know it's attached to them. Now you cannot move this to another follower, and when this follower dies, this weapon does go away. So, like if this follower had this weapon attached and he died, then you would put both of these cards into the graveyard. Now keep in mind, you can have multiple copies of the same weapon out at once. However, each follower can only have 1 copy of each weapon out. So for example, if we were to clone this, this guy cannot have 2 of these attached. But if they were 2 separate weapons, he could have 2 attached to them. If one is attached already and you play a second one onto the same guy, the one that was attached before goes to the graveyard. So next we're going to talk about trinkets. So when you play a trinket, it goes out into your battlefield, and it stays there until it's destroyed by an opponent's effect or until the end of the game. So in this case, this trinket says, exhaust this card, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to a follower you control. So in Eldricore, if an ability that's activated doesn't have a specific timing on it, so timings are like during your turn, during your opponent's turn, at slow speed. If it doesn't have something like that, as part of the ability, then that means it can be used at instant speed, and that does mean either turn as well. So where this says exhaust this card, since it does not say a specific timing, this can be used at instant speed on either turn. So this is another example of an ability that you could use in response to an attack. So if your opponent were to attack you with a follower, you could exhaust this and block one of the damage. Now keep in mind, with trinkets, you can only have one copy of a trinket on the field at a time. So you cannot play multiple of these out at the same time. If you do play a new one, the one that was currently on the battlefield goes to the graveyard. Now that does open up some interesting plays for some decks in the mid to late game, where you can effectively use a trinket and then play another copy of it and reuse the second copy. So that does open up some plays there. Now the next kind of card we're going to go over is the Minor Eldricore. Now, as far as the starter decks go, this is the only one that we have. However, there are a few special ones in set 1. There's one for each color, plus one that is also prismatic, so that means it can go into any color deck. So those will be a lot of fun for you guys to see and play with at a certain point. However, these are what you exhaust to generate energy, which is what you use to pay for cards. So in this game, there is no floating energy. You can only exhaust cards to generate energy, or you can only generate energy when you're going to pay the cost of a card. So for example, if this was down here and I wanted to play this block spell, then what I would do is I would exhaust this Minor Eldricore, and that would pay the 1 energy for the block spell. Now you get 8 of these. They go in your core deck. They go face down. Once the official set 1 releases, you will have to shuffle your core deck before the game begins. However, as of right now, since there's only basics anyway, that's completely optional. So the final card that we're going to talk about is the Eldricore itself. So this is effectively considered the leader of your deck. Every card in your deck must match the color of your Eldricore. Prismatic cards can technically go into any color, so they match every color. Now, every Eldricore does have its own unique ability. Some of them are triggered abilities, where whenever you do something, it triggers it. This one, for example, though, is an activated ability, so you can exhaust this card and give a follower plus 0/2 for the turn, so that means 0 attack, 2 HP. So, because this also has no timing on it, this can be used instantly on either turn. So, as long as you can pay the cost, which on all cards, the cost is everything before the colon. So here, the cost is exhausting the card. So you would just exhaust the card, and then you can give someone 2 HP for the turn. So we'll pretend he's over here. So yeah, you would give him plus 2 HP for the turn. So now he has 4 HP for this turn. So this is a really cool card that you can use in response to a lot of things. One other thing that I wanted to go over was there are some really interesting combos and things that you can do with certain cards. This right here has kind of been a favorite for people who are testing the game. So his ability just says sacrifice this card. That's the cost. You have to be able to sacrifice him in order to use it. Draw a card. So just like on the trinkets or on the Eldricore, this ability does not have a timing on it. So this means that you can use this ability at instant speed. So for example, if I were to attack with the Ironclad Warrior into my opponent's Eldricore, they could, on the first opportunity, they don't declare anything. Then when blockers come, they declare the block. So now this attack is going here no matter what. So then, after the blockers are declared, both players get opportunity one more time, this time starting with the attacking player. So on their opportunity, once the attacking player passes, they can then sacrifice him with his ability. So he would go to the graveyard, and they would get to draw a card. Now, because this attack was already redirected to him, that means that this attack would fizzle. So the defending player here would not take any damage, and the attack would essentially just fizzle out. So he would not deal or receive any damage, and same thing for him, because he was sacrificed before damage resolved. There are a handful of different interactions in this game, even in the starter decks, that kind of work this way, so I just wanted to go over that. So yeah, this has been the basics of every single card type. If you guys do have any questions, you can always reach out to us on Discord or social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.